So a lot of the stories that I've been thinking about going to Story Slam have been about like how like resilient I am and how well I deal with stress and complicated situations. But that being said, I'm also really dramatic. Like I'm super dramatic about anything, but it doesn't mean that I'm not handling things well. It's like after the fact, I'm going to make sure that you know like how crazy the scenario was. And that's something that my family, number one, that's my thing. I'm the dramatic one. But when I was 10, we were living in Glen Burnie, Maryland. I was living in a suburb. I could walk to school. I knew where all my friends were, all of that. And they picked up and moved us to Airville, Pennsylvania. Like, that is a dramatic shift. Like, that is a change. I went from seeing people living like 50 yards from where my house was to having 4 people on like a 5-mile road, and one of them was Amish, so they didn't even have electric. That's dramatic. Like living without electric, like God bless for what they do. But so like it was a dramatic shift in living, and I made sure that I made that aware when I was 10 years old in whatever way I knew how to. But like so many things changed from living from Glen Burnie to now Airville. We had 5 acres. We went from like this tiny little plot in a suburb to having 5 acres. I had to pull weeds for the first time in my life. And I'll tell you now that like I consider myself a very hard worker. I even work for free at events all the time. But when I was 10, having to go from I didn't have to curate anything of our little tiny plot that we had in Glen Burnie to now going to Airville, where we had basically like a half an acre of just garden. And with garden comes weeds. And I had to pull all of those weeds every single summer, and I hated it. I don't get weeds. I don't understand them. They just come back every single year, and we're still gonna pick them. Like, I don't even like gardens or flowers that much. So now I had to like contribute in that way. No, thank you. I hated it so much. We had these horrible bugs called wheel bugs. If you're familiar, they have just like one little fang. And like, how dramatic of an insect is that? That like, they move so slow. They can also fly, but they move so slow. And if they get you and they puncture you, it is incredibly painful, searing pain from this one little bug. Like, I didn't sign up for that at all. But also my parents, I mean, they were paying for my living and all that, whatever. My living in their house. I didn't do anything outside of there because we were a half an hour away from anything at all. We were 10 minutes from a Rutter's, but that's about it. But the worst thing out of my entire time living in Airville in rural southern York County was mowing the lawn. I hated that more than anything. I would come up with any excuse. There was an underground beehive in one part of the yard I saw at one point. I couldn't get around that. I could be allergic to bees. I don't know. And I did get stung, and I was fine, whatever, so be it, learning experience. But I would push off mowing the lawn, push mowing. That's what my portion was, which about an acre of our entire lawn was push mowing, because it was like on an incline like that, you couldn't do that with a riding mower. And that was my responsibility. So very many times it was a prairie because I had let it go so long. And I guess I'm grateful to my parents for being so lenient that they didn't make me, but when I finally had to do it, oh my God, like, it's so long. Why do I have to do this? It was my fault. Yeah, it was all my fault. By the time I was like 16, I had graduated to having to do the riding mowing, which was the other 4 acres of our property. And it was so much more. I liked it. It turns out nowadays that I find it how tranquil those times were when you're thinking for 4 straight hours. I'm just going to go in a straight line and make a turn and go a straight line and make another turn. It's actually something that I miss now that I live in a city, and I live in a city for good reason. But the one dramatic story that I get to hold over the heads of my entire family up until this day was we had a little tiny strip of grass that was across from a creek that we had to mow. We were responsible for. I also got into the habit, if you wouldn't guess, that I would just be on the top speed. I wanted to get it done. I just top speed at all times. The grass looked great, trust me, I did a great job. But we also had very uneven. We were in like a hollow, so there was dips and hills and things like that. But I just kept going because I was in the habit of letting the grass grow really long. I would take one of those bungee cords and keep the output. I would keep that up the whole time so it could just spray out, because it would get clogged up and you would have to stop if so. But in that one day, I was going so fast. I was in a little area that I should have known a little bit better. And I was just going, and the speed plus a little tiny bump, I got bumped off the mower. I got thrown off, which, if you know mower safety, as soon as your butt leaves the seat, everything starts to shut down. But it takes a little bit to shut down. And the casualty of that, which I wouldn't say casualty, that's really stupid, but my foot went into the mower area. I have all my toes, don't you worry. They all look good. But my foot goes into the mower, and this is a time when no one is home. My mom works in Owings Mills, Maryland, which is an hour and 10-minute drive. We live in a hollow. There's no cell phone service. I am the furthest away from my entire house. So till this day, the way that I think of it is I was on the ground. I was crawling my way to get back to the house so I could get to the landline to call someone, to let someone know that I'm dying, I'm mutilated. In retrospect, I wasn't at all. I mean, I had not pulled off my shoe until, luckily, I got in contact with some church friends that were driving down the road, and it's kind of just like, oh, hey, can you pick me up? They took me to the hospital and everything, and like I saw, like, I thought I was going to lose my toe. I thought I was going to lose, like, 2 toes. Everything's fine. Don't you worry. But till this day, that whole experience, and because of my own drama, in thinking of it, I love to be able to use that in any sense to my entire family to say, do you remember that time that you left me for dead? And it always works out. Thank you.